Hi, so I wanted to talk about Psalm 102, which was really cool the other day. That I realized what the real Hebrew translation is for Psalm 102. It has some end times prophetic stuff, but it was talking about the Holocaust. My heart is smitten like grass. I forgot to eat my bread. My bones cleave to my flesh. My enemies taunt me all day long. I have eaten ashes like bread and mingled my drink with weeping. And some people think that the ashes from the bodies that were being burned were actually going in, they were actually eating the ashes. But the Lord redeemed that situation by making Israel in a day. So Israel became a nation, and the Holocaust was over, and the Jews had their own land back. So if you follow the history of Israel and the Jewish people, that gives you, there's some real specific things that we can look for about the end times and about the Lord coming back. But I didn't know there was a clue in Psalm 102 until I was watching this movie called The Sign, and it had Michael Rood and Scott Clark, and it was all about the Revelation 12 sign, which I've talked to you guys about, that was on September 22nd, 23rd, depending on where you live, 2017, which I believe signified the start of the last 7 years, and the Lord is confirming his covenant with us. In that documentary, they brought out Psalm 102:19, and in the English, starting in 17, it says, when the Lord has built up Zion, when he has appeared in his glory, when he has regarded the prayer of the destitute and has not despised their prayer, this shall be written for the generation to come, and a people which shall be created to praise the Lord. But the Hebrew translation, the real Hebrew, this is from a rabbi's translation, and I also have someone else who translated it for me. And in the sign, they brought out the real translation of Psalm 102:19 is this is for the final generation, not the generation to come. Is in Hebrew the final generation. So if you translate it like this is for the final generation, this is about the final generation, this was written for the final generation, then if you put that into context with Zion, when the Lord has built up Zion, okay, the Lord built up Zion in 1948 when Israel became a nation again, and the treaty was signed in 47. The Lord built up Zion. Israel became a nation. And if you read back to that in the correct Hebrew, then this was done in the final generation, for the final generation. So that would be totally, it was so exciting because in Matthew 24, we have the, sorry, I lost it here. Matthew, that's where, people go, no man knows the day or hour, but we have clues. We have so many clues. And one of the biggest one, and you can just read it as a child, it's not even that hard to understand, is that when Jesus says, when will these things, or when the disciples said, when will these things happen? When can we know that, you're coming? Jesus says, learn the parable of the fig tree in Matthew 24:32, and the parable of the fig tree is Israel becoming a nation. Israel is the fig tree, and Jesus says when Israel becomes a nation, but he says when Israel puts its branches forth and comes to fruition, which was 1947, 1948, when they rebuilt Zion, when the fig tree came to fruition, Jesus says, you will see all these things, recognize that the end is here. He is here, like he is right here at your door. And Jesus says in 34, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. All these things in Matthew 24. So, and this is all about the end and the earthquakes and the diverse places and great distress of nations and the sun being darkened and the moon turned to blood and all that stuff. So anyway, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. So this is the only place I know in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh, where it talks about the final generation, just like Jesus talks about in Matthew 24. And they're both perfectly linked to the rebuilding of Zion, to Zion being built up, which is Israel becoming a nation and flourishing. So if you count a generation in the Bible is 70 years, and if you count 70 years from when they signed the treaty for Zion, for Israel to become a nation again in 1947, if you count 70 years, which is the final generation, the last generation that shall not pass away, Jesus says, that goes exactly to 2017, exactly to the time of the Revelation 12 sign. And anyone who's looking for signs, the Lord said there will be signs and wonders in the heavens. And if Revelation 12 sign wasn't enough for you, I don't know what could be enough for you. For me, it was enough for me. I had already seen the blood moons and the tetrods on the holy days. I already knew we were heading to be a generation from the fig tree being in fruition, Zion becoming a nation. And that just sealed the deal for me. So then I have, if you watch my end time series, we have a whole, so much study and so much timeline. Not that we know for sure. It may not be exact or anything. It's just there's so many clues and so many prophetic things have already happened. So, it's just super exciting. Like the 2,300 morning and evenings prophesying Daniel, that may have already started. If you'll watch that particular link I have there, the Twin Towers coming down, 9/11. Like, you can't make this stuff up. There's nowhere else in the world that you would have what Zechariah 6 talks about of the two Twin Towers. So the two Twin Towers with the four horses of Zechariah and the four horses of the apocalypse, was that something that's already happened? Have the four horses been going out? Possibly. So anyway, those are just some other things we studied, and I have so much to share, but this was just such a profound revelation to me. I was like, too bad we had the English version, so much gets lost in translation, like they say, but that Psalm 102, having the final generation being linked to the rebuilding of Zion, exactly correlates with Jesus' words that this generation will not pass away, the ones that have seen the fig tree come to fruition. So I'm super excited to be in this generation. I'm super excited to be in the time of the Lord coming. I hope you're as excited as I am. All right, Lord, looking up, our redemption draws nigh. All right.